Continue our coverage on the pandemic. The origin of COVID-19 remains unconfirmed, but there have been plenty of theories, rumors, misinformation. For more on that, I'm joined in the studio by my colleague Hui'ao. Hui'ao, walk us through some of those.
Sure, Pandan. We begin with the one that's attracted the most attention recently, that a lab in Wuhan, the city where the outbreak began, manufactured and leaked the virus. Now, the theory was put forward by Nobel Prize winner in medicine, French virologist Luc Montagnier. His argument is based on the presence of elements of HIV in the genome of the new virus. And he says it was a result of China trying to manufacture an AIDS vaccine. And the Wuhan National Biosafety Laboratory is where the, quote, accident took place. Now, such statements have sparked a scientific firestorm. Virologist Antia Simon-Loria calls the theory aberrant. He pointed out that the fragments of the genome actually resemble many sequences of the genetic material of bacteria, viruses, and plants. Basically, he's saying that some components of the virus resemble those in many other organisms. But some are still caught up in the lab theory, including the U.S. administration. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently voiced his support for it. His argument was the Wuhan Institute of Virology is just a handful of miles away from the seafood market, where most early infections were reported. The allegation came after the U.S. top expert on infectious diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, rejected the conspiracy theory. Not to mention a clinical study by Chinese researcher that showed the earliest known infection was not linked to the seafood market. And that paper was published in the medical journal Lancet. Now, in response to the Pompeo's allegation, one researcher of the institute, Yuan Zhiming, called it a baseless allegation based on imagination. Let's take a listen.
As people who carry out viral studies, we clearly know what kind of research is going on at the Institute and how the Institute manages viruses and samples. As we said early on, there's no way this virus came from us. We have a strict regulatory regimen, we have a code of conduct for research, so we are confident of that.
Now, besides the lab theory, some have gone even further, suggesting the coronavirus was man-made as a bioweapon. Sensational, of course. But the artificial origin theory was further refuted by researchers from around the world, including those from the University of Sydney and Columbia University. By comparing genome sequence data, scientists determined that the coronavirus originated through natural processes and could not have been manufactured artificially. Now, if it is indeed a product of nature, as scientists say, wildlife may be the most likely origin. In early January, Chinese scientists found a 96% match with coronavirus samples taken from bats, specifically those from Yunnan province. Now, does that mean bats transmitted the virus to humans? Not necessarily. The 4% difference suggests there could be another animal that acted as an intermediate host. And some scientists say pangolins may be that host. But even with this theory, there is no clear evidence as to where the virus came from. Some scientists believe Wuhan is not ground zero of the outbreak. The virus could have been circulating much earlier. Some Italian doctors said they saw patients with suspected symptoms as early as October last year. Despite all these different theories, scientists seem to agree on one thing, that is, it could be years before we have a clear answer on how it all began. As virologist Lingfao Wang from Duke National University of Singapore says, trying to pinpoint the true origin of this coronavirus in just 2 to 3 months is just not feasible.